Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so excited to get started and kick off our Earth Month celebrations over at Rethink Waste. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for some more guests to join us. So just get comfortable and we'll get started in maybe one more minute. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So hello again, everyone. Welcome to our kickoff event in celebration of Earth Month over at Rethink Waste. We're so excited for all of you to join us tonight. Thank you for being here. As I mentioned, this is our kickoff event for our Earth Month celebration. So if you haven't already visited our website, we do have some other events coming up this weekend and next week. And we have a litter challenge that's happening all month. So if you're interested in any of those, please do visit our website to sign up and join us in the coming days. So before we get started, I do just want to share a little note. If you're interested in using closed captions for this webinar, we do have them available at the bottom of your screen. You should see a little button with a CC and the words closed captions and a little arrow. So once you hit that, it should say show subtitles, and then those are available for our webinar tonight. If you have any troubles accessing those, go ahead and send a message in the chat to all panelists, and then we can help you get those closed captions set up. Okay, and with that, I think we're ready to get started. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Osteen. I am an environmental education fellow with Rethink Waste. And I'm just going to get us started with a quick overview of tonight's events and a brief introduction to who we are at Rethink Waste. So tonight we will be watching the film Plastic Wars by PBS Frontline. So the film is about 53 minutes long, and so afterwards we will take a short 5-minute intermission before we reconvene with our panel of experts. Tonight we have joining us Eva Holman, Alejandra Warren, and Dan Domonoske. So they will be continuing the plastics discussion and answering any questions that you might have that might have arose during the filming. Okay, so just to give you a little introduction to who we are, Rethink Waste is also known as South Bayside Waste Management Authority, SBWMA. We are a local government agency in San Mateo County, and we manage all of the garbage, compost, and recycling that's generated in our service area. So that's all of our 11 member agencies that are highlighted here on the map. And so in total, we take care of around 428,000 residents, including 93,000 households and 11,000 businesses. Rethink Waste also owns and operates Shoreway Environmental Center, located in San Carlos, and we work closely with two other partner companies who might be familiar to you. They are Recology San Mateo County. Recology are our haulers. They're the ones that go out with the collection trucks and pick up the waste, and then they bring it back to our facility, Shoreway Environmental Center, where it's processed by our friends at South Bay Recycling. So they are the ones that manage the waste inside the facility and then are also responsible for sending it on to its next destination. So in honor of Earth Month and in recognition of our growing plastics problem, tonight we are screening the film Plastic Wars by PBS Frontline. And this is sort of coming as a part two to a webinar that we held back in the fall. So if you're interested in watching that, it is up on our website, so you can view that at a later time if you're interested. But tonight we just wanted to revisit this topic and continue the conversation around plastics so we can all collectively better understand this problem and move forward in our solutions. So the film Plastic Wars was first premiered last spring in March of 2020, so it's relatively new. Again, it's about 53 minutes, so get comfortable, get a snack, and as we watch the film, please feel free to type any questions that might come up in the Q&A tab that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So any questions can go in there, and then if you have any other comments or thoughts that you want to share with the other audience members, we can put those in the chat. Just make sure when you go to the chat that the to section is labeled for all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share or other resources. So again, questions for panelists go in the Q&A, and then any other thoughts or comments in the chat, please. Cool. So before we switch to our film screening, I just want to give a small disclaimer that within about the first minute and a half of the film, there is sort of a graphic video involving a sea turtle and a plastic straw. So if you're watching with kids, maybe just look away for the first minute or so. Additionally, we are going to be streaming the film with captions on. So if you're using the captions in Zoom, then you can go ahead and disable those. And then turn them back on later for the panelist discussion. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. And with that, I will turn it over, get comfortable, and enjoy the film. Welcome back to part two of our plastics webinar. Hope you all enjoyed the Plastic Wars film and found it insightful. We're so excited to have three incredible and passionate panelists joining us tonight to further this discussion around our plastics problem. The first is Alejandra Warren. So Alejandra is a sustainability consultant and intersectional environmentalist working on diverse zero waste, resource conservation, and environmental justice projects across the Bay Area. She co-led efforts to pass the first single-use plastic ban in San Mateo County in 2018 and co-funded Plastic Free Future and Circular SMC in 2020. From soil to humans, Alejandra strongly believes in the interconnectedness of all organisms and that working to heal our relationship with the environment will lead to happier, healthier, and more resilient communities. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Alejandra. We are also joined tonight by Dan Domonoske. Dan is the Executive Vice President of Potential Industries and has more than 30 years of experience in recycling. Dan is recognized in the industry as having technical expertise in MRF processing and marketing of post-consumer MRF sorted materials, including plastics. Dan knows us well at Rethink Waste as he is the Vice President of South Bay Recycling, who processes the waste inside Shoreway Environmental Center. Dan acts as our primary broker for recyclables and maintains relationships with our recycling markets. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Economics, a Master's in International Business Development, and a PhD in Environmental Policy. He is also a rippin' skier that loves the snow. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. And finally, we are also joined tonight by Eva Holman. Eva is the policy organizer at Upstream, a national NGO dedicated to sparking innovative solutions to plastic pollution, and the co-founder of a San Francisco-based zero waste and plastic-free business, Goods Holding Company. She serves on the boards of San Francisco League of Conservation Voters and Plastic Free Future. Eva is dedicated to championing environmental policies and alternative solutions for single-use plastics, as well as looking for ways to make clean air, water, and food available to all. Thank you, Eva, and welcome. I'm also pleased to introduce our moderator for tonight's discussion, Julia Au. Julia is RethinkWaste's Senior Outreach, Education, and Compliance Manager. She works on a variety of engaging waste reduction and recycling outreach programs and on policy legislation. For over 10 years, Julia has been involved in a variety of environmental programs and initiatives while at SF Department of the Environment, Californians Against Waste, California Product Stewardship Council, and San Mateo County. She's led enforcement of San Mateo County's reusable bag and safe medicine disposal ordinances, and for 5 years was San Mateo County's Coastal Cleanup Day coordinator. Julia is passionate about creating positive environmental behavior change throughout the community. Thank you for moderating tonight, Julia. And at this time, I would like to invite all of our panelists to the virtual stage, and I will pass the mic over to Julia. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Janelle. Great intros. I'm very excited about moderating this exceptional panel of experts. I think we've gathered a great group here tonight. I just want to remind everyone to submit your questions in the Q&A. I see some already. And I know we have some pre-submitted questions this evening as well. And I know I have some questions. But I just want to get started on a question I just saw about 3 to 7 plastics. So we're just gonna get started. I hope that's okay, panelists, and just hit the ground running, I guess. About 3 to 7 plastics, and if that's going to landfill, I know that's something that was in the video or in the documentary, was ensuring that recyclables are actually getting recycled. So I kind of want to pass this question to Dan and see if he has any insight on that. Dan?
Yes, for the purpose of this discussion, my comments are going to be for post-consumer MRF, or material recovery facilities. So these would be the commingled recyclables that most people are familiar with. So the answer to the 7 is going to the landfill.
Dan, you're breaking up just a little bit. So we're gonna move on to a different question. Maybe Dan, can you try speaking again and see if breaking up a little bit? Okay, Dan's gonna work on that. We're gonna go to another question. We're gonna come back to you, Dan, I promise. Something else that was talked about in the video was about, throwaway culture. And, I figured, Eva, if you can share about some like policies that we're working on while Dan gets his audio back, about plastics, because I feel like there's a lot of things that we're trying to work on, statewide, but also locally. Like there's so much stuff that, we're working on. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing at Upstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really timely to be talking to San Mateo County, as well as, talk about other counties we're working with. Upstream has supported a lot of policies that have passed in the last few years that are mandate compostable foodware in place of plastics, just knowing how toxic plastics can be to the environment and to human health. And within the last few years that we've recognized that putting one disposable in place of another disposable is just going to add to longer term problems, and that compostable foodware can cause as much environmental and climate and human health problem as a plastic. And so within the last 2 years, we've started to introduce reuse policies, which mandate reuse for on-site, and sometimes can also include a cup or a container charge for single-use to-go containers. And these are really what we've been passionate about introducing, supporting, and passing all over the Bay Area and beyond. And some of these have already passed. San Anselmo, Fairfax, Berkeley was a really big one. Arcata was the most comprehensive. They included a cup, container, and reuse for on-site. Half Moon Bay has passed a reuse on-site, which they tacked on to San Mateo's model foodware policy. So knowing what we do about the difficulty in processing all of these single-use items, from compostables to recyclables, and the rate of which they end up in landfill or littered or in waterways, we just figured out that reuse policies were going to do the biggest amount of change in the fastest way possible without asking people to change their behavior on a personal level. Policies will make big sweeping changes and affect cities and counties and states on a much grander scale.
Thanks, Eva. I know, I mean, the work that you guys are doing upstream is really important because we have to tackle it on all fronts. So, we have to do the policy. And I know, Alejandra, you've been working on like the consumer side of it, like what we can do as individuals. And before I go back to Dan, I just kind of wanted to pitch to Alejandra, like, is there anything you wanted to add to what Eva's doing? They're doing the policies, but what a consumer could do. I know we have some questions about the bags and the stores and what to do with that. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely, Julia. To what Eva was commenting, I would love to add, we are very lucky that our county is already working on ordinance. We're gonna see a lot less plastic in San Mateo County pretty soon. Some things that we can do that sound small, but they're gonna be important. We need to refuse single-use plastic. Single-use plastic is anything that you use once or twice, and then it's gonna end up in the trash. Dan is gonna explain a little bit more about this, but yes, those kind of plastics are not being recycled right now, unfortunately. So if you can avoid anything, a straw, a plastic utensil, a takeout container, Eva and a lot of people, we are working towards reusable solutions. That means encouraging people to bring their own containers. Bring your mug to the coffee shop. Bring your straw if you don't like the paper straw. Carry your utensils in your purse. Carry your own reusable bag. COVID gave us a lot of issues with the reusable options, but now we have enough science to tell people you are safe using your reusables. Please bring reusables back. When you go to the restaurant and they give you your food to eat there in a plastic container, talk to them and tell them, I want the real plate. I want real utensils. I want the real meal with a real experience, with a metal fork and a metal spoon and a real plate. So those small decisions are gonna make a really, really big impact. So reduce the amount of single-use plastic you're using. That's a really good beginning.
Totally hear you on that. I was very saddened about, a year ago when they took away the whole reusable bag thing. And I was like, I can't deal with this. I need to bring my own bag. It just feels wrong to get any sort of bag at the store, especially since this has been a part of us for so long. So Dan, I just want to check we got your audio back. If we can go back to your question. Got you there?
Test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We'll let you know if you break up. Hopefully we don't have that happen, but just wanted to go back to about 3 to 7s and just, about the recyclability and what's happening with that. I think that's what we were answering.
So let's start with setting the stage. What I'm going to be speaking about when I'm asked questions is post-consumer MRF sorted. MRF, of course, is a material recovery facility. So it has to do with the plastics that have been used by consumers and go through the MRF and we try to recover it. So this is different than post-industrial, pre-consumer, all types of plastics that are between 3 to 7. They can be recycled all the time, manufacturing scrap, converting waste, things like that. But for the purpose of consumers, all of the 3 through 7s are going to the landfill.
So there's no market.
There is a market for plastic number 5, polypropylene, and depending on the MRF's recovery equipment, they're able to recover that grade. This is something that the Shoreway facility may be doing in the future as we add some additional sorting equipment. In that 3 through 7, the only other market other than 1 PET and 2 HDPE is the number 5 polypropylene, but that is not being recovered at the Shoreway facility. And at
Right. What products are number 5? Like, I know we're not collecting it, but what would that be?
That would be like a yogurt container or a margarine. We call it tubs and lids. In the video, you saw the folks from Keurig there that were advocating the recyclability of their pods, which are also now been switched to the PP number 5, but they're far too small to be efficiently recovered. Plus they're contaminated with residual coffee grounds, and there's a filter inside, plus there's aluminum lid. And that's all way too much work for the people to just try to figure out what to put in my bin.
Yes, those lots of mixed materials and confusing plastics out there. That's the whole world. I just want to make sure we had a question, and we got a couple of this question, the same similar question in our pre-submitted questions about plastic grocery bags. I don't know, Dan, if you know if the plastic, I guess, single-use bags that people are getting, is there a way to recycle? Like, I know some grocery stores are collecting them now, but are they recycled? Is there a market for that? Like, what happens with that material?
There was a law in the state of California, which is no longer in place, that required retailers of a certain size to take those back at the front, typically at grocery stores. What they were supposed to do is to take that clean material in the back, put it in the baler, after they bale their cardboard, and sell those bags. However, that never actually occurred in practice. And it's my understanding that the contamination level on that stuff is so high that even if it ends up there, it just gets trashed. But one thing I like to do is if I end up at the grocery store and I didn't bring a bag with me, I might just pull a bag out of there because then I can reuse it. It's not necessarily hygienic, but the answer to your question is if it gets to the MRF, it's a terrible thing. We have mechanical screens, it wraps around them, causes all kinds of problems. There's no market for it. Even if we could recover it, which we did for a long time, we pulled it out, sold it to China, but people stopped doing that since 2018. So we no longer do that.
Yes, we definitely don't want plastic bags going into the MRF. Causes jams, bad. I've definitely seen a lot of flimsy plastic in the past couple of years at our MRF. So definitely don't want to put them in there. I'm just checking the chat to see if there are any other questions that have come up, new ones. Someone asked a question about how many shipping containers equivalent are currently being exported for recycling. I'm going to assume for our service area, and I assume exported means like exported to overseas. Dan, I don't know if you know that answer. Keep bumping back to you, but.
On the plastics, very few, almost none. The two primary grades are PET and HDPE. Those are all consumed domestically. We do export quite a few containers, between 6 and 8 40-foot containers per day. It goes to Southeast Asia, but that's cardboard and paper because there's essentially no market for that in California. So a 40-foot container holds about 20 to 23 tons, and very few plastics are being exported from our Shoreway facility to Southeast Asia.
Got it. Great. I love this question. I'm a middle schooler. How can I help? It's way harder to make an effect as a younger person or impact as adults don't really listen. I would hope as an adult, I listen to younger kids. I feel like Alejandra, what do you think, as a middle schooler? Like, I know you talked about refusing single use. I think that's a great thing. Like, children can impact their parents. We do school tours, and I know that a lot of the students bring that back home, hopefully, and get their parents to change something about their habits. But what are some other tips besides refusing, and focusing on reuse? I
love that question so much because at work every single day I see how kids are making the difference. And when I go and talk to families about composting and I tell them how to sort, it's the kid that tells me, I know, that's my job because they teach me that at school and I'm doing it at home. And parents tell me it's because of my children that I'm doing this. So my recommendation for you, I wish I knew your name. If you can keep in touch, I have lots of things for you to do. But for now, use your voice. That's my encouragement. Use your voice. Don't be afraid. Don't feel small, because any conversation that you can have can make a really, really big difference with your friends at school, with your teachers, with your parents, with your family. Every time you show them by example that you are leading the way, they're going to listen to you. So don't think that they're not listening. We are all listening, and we want more kids like you involved. So just get in touch with me and I'll find wonderful things for you to help me with in Plastic Free Future.
Great answer, Alejandra. I don't know if Eva, if you have anything else to add to that. I know you work with.
I do, and it's exciting. I mean, there's a lot of potential for projects that you can do without an adult. School cafeterias are a great launching point. For some reason, schools moved away from reusable trays and containers to plastic, rigid plastic with plastic tops some years ago. And schools in Palo Alto, as well as in Berkeley and Marin, are moving back to reusables in their cafeterias. And this is a great, I mean, if you're in a school that has a cafeteria that's using single-use items, that's a great spot to get involved. You have a strong voice in your school environment, especially if your school's back in now. If not, then it might take till next year, but that gives you some time to set up a really great campaign and do some research on how schools in Berkeley and Palo Alto have navigated that process, middle schools in particular. So that's an age group that's really tapped into this migration to reusables for their cafeteria food. And there's a ton of research that's been done about the chemicals on single-use plastics and how those can affect kids. So that's a great launch point for starting that kind of a campaign.
That sounds great. Yes, school. I mean, I know a lot of students are not physically in school right now, but I know some are going back. So yes, school is a great place to start. There's so much, I feel like there's so much waste there. For good reason. I feel like, you know, we're trying to keep kids safe as well, but I know a lot of places are moving to reusables, which is great. I love seeing that. We have some questions about biodegradable plastics. So I've heard that some plastics, the kind that seem almost like cellophane, are biodegradable. Is that so? I'm thinking that many bags that Trader Joe's sells produce in, like that flimsy, super flimsy plastic. I see Alejandra shaking her head. Pretty sure the answer is no. Dan's shaking his head too. Does anyone want to, Dan, you unmuted yourself first. So anything to add to that?
It's a joke. It doesn't work. It's fine in a lab, but there's no commercially viable application for that in the country.
Yes, what I would love to add to that is that there's a lot of greenwashing in bioplastics, in biodegradable plastics, in compostable plastics. We're starting to understand that they really don't do what people wanted them to do. We can see all sorts of plastic that say compostable, and they are probably compostable when they go to a composting facility with a really high temperature and controlled humidity. But if you take that compostable fork to the beach and accidentally drop it, the turtle's gonna eat it, the fish is gonna eat it, and it's never gonna decompose. It's just gonna break down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, nanoplastics. They're gonna end up in the fish, they're gonna end up in the food chain, and we're gonna end up eating them. So please, please, please keep your eyes open for all those names that are not the real solution.
Great.
And just in addition to that, I added a link in the chat that just a recent study that talks about some of the harmful chemicals that have been found in compostable or bioplastics. So it's not a solution. It's sort of a hitch keeping us from finding long-term lasting solutions, because it offers a quick fix that actually is just, I feel bad for waste management companies for having to deal with it. Actually, it's something that's been, I'm sure, a big headache for waste management companies to try to find a place for this, the muck in the system.
I have to agree. I feel like there's a lot of confusion, and I know we want to always find a great fix, but you know, that's not the root of the problem. We're trying to fix plastics at a much higher level. Obviously, it starts much higher than just creating a new alternative. It sounds like we're just creating more waste. Someone had a question about Trex or Next Trex. recycling program for plastic film. They're buying it, but it does need to be clean. I don't know if that's a question, if anyone has heard about it. I know, you know, a lot of plastics can be recycled once. You know, you can turn maybe a water bottle into a pair of shoes or something, but you can't recycle the shoe. So at least you're extending the life of a product, but which I think is what Nextrex does. I don't know if anyone knows anything about that. That might just be a comment.
Well, yeah, what I just wanted to say really quickly about that you're completely right. Everything that we think that is recyclable, it's just gonna be downcycled probably into a product that is a lot lesser quality than the first one. So then it ends there. And what we're not looking, and the movie probably didn't do a really good job at showing us, is that that's the end of plastic. That's the waste problem, but we're not looking at the entire picture. There's a really big environmental justice problem with plastic. When we are taking fossil fuels out of the soil, we're making them into plastic. This manufacturing and transportation part of making plastic is really hurting Black and brown communities in the United States, not in Southeast Asia, not in Vietnam, in our same country. Kids are getting cancer and lots of different ailments related to the emissions produced by plastic and by plastic pollution. So there's a really big impact of plastic in every single step of the production.
I'd like to embellish what Alejandra said, which is exactly right. She mentioned the word downcycling. That's not recycling. Recycling is if something gets used over and over, and glass, aluminum, paper, over and over and over. Downcycling is when you turn it into some kind of a park bench or three-dimensional plastic lumber, and it stays that way forever. And even to do that, it's not done with post-consumer film plastic. If you're at a Lowe's or a Walmart distribution center and you get pre-consumer clear LDPE film that's grade A, yeah, maybe you can use that. But you get into anything that's post-consumer, they can't even use that for downcycling purposes. So I think, Alejandra, you're right on.
Thank you both. That was great. Well spoken, Alejandra and Dan, for adding to that. I think people just forget about, you know, everything has a place and its end of life. And for a lot of plastics, the end of life is just in a landfill. And it impacts everybody along the way. It's not just something that we think of waste as something, it'll go away and it's not there. And it's like, no, has lots of impacts, whole life cycle. I can go on and on about that. We have a question about how we can get Trader Joe's to change the packaging so much clamshells. I think Alejandra mentioned this, like, speak with your voice. And I think Eva too, just, you know, I know a couple years ago, Whole Foods was packaging like an orange that had already been peeled in a plastic container. And it was like, it literally has a container. It was the peel of the orange, and they stopped it. You know, I think there was something even recently, you know, our voices matter. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with the world, but I feel like we have so many avenues to speak out, social media, to our elected officials, but, you know, dollars speak a lot too. So if you're not, you know, don't buy those things at Trader Joe's. I know I frequent Trader Joe's, but I try not to buy that packaged stuff because it's completely wasteful and it's completely unnecessary, especially for produce to be packaged like that. So I don't know if Alejandra or Eva want to add anything to that, but I think, you know,
Yes.
right, Trader Joe's.
Yeah, I would love to add that a few months ago, there was this huge campaign of a lot of people going to Trader Joe's during the same afternoon, buying Trader Joe's stuff, leaving the plastic packaging and living with the food. So Trader Joe's found themselves with a pile of plastic. They're like, what are we gonna do with this? And where people were saying, well, you deal with your plastic. That's your plastic, then you deal with it. And that really got them into thinking, wow, this is what people think. And this is what people are paying attention to. So many years ago, maybe you don't remember that because you're too young, but many years ago, the organic section was a very small section in the supermarket and you had to go to the organic section, right? Now, every single item in the supermarket has an organic version. And that happened because people start spending their money in organic, right? So if you start thinking about solutions that are not plastic related, people are gonna move towards those markets because we are the ones that dictating how the markets work. So let's put our money in items that are plastic free. Go to the farmers market, support your little market stand that has fruits and vegetables that are not wrapped in plastic, and people will listen.
They will. It sounds like Whole Foods is also doing this again. Someone, thank you for that comment, Cheryl. But yeah, go write your stores, let them know that. The more people who speak up, the more they'll hear about it. Otherwise, it's just us talking to each other about it and complaining when we're not actually dealing with the problem straight on. But let's move on. We have a bunch of questions. I want to get to all of them. So we'll not dilly-dally. Are there any restaurants in the Bay Area that will let you bring your own plate or container for takeout? Alejandra, Eva, anybody? Either of you?
Yeah, Alejandra's doing this really successfully, but I just wanted to put a pitch in that we're starting to gather more data in this area. If you hear of a restaurant or a cafe that's letting you bring your own, we want to hear about it. So it's really important that we celebrate these restaurants that are taking the lead. I'm going to let Alejandra answer this because she's been doing so much successful work in this area, but I really want to just ask people to share that however you can. When someone's actually letting you use your cup or container, they're a leader in this space, and we should really give them some props for doing the right thing in a very strange time when we're being lifted out of COVID, and there's been some health concerns that we've now it's clear that there's no danger to using a reusable. It's making sure that we're championing these restaurants taking that first step.
Yeah, Eva, I would love for you to add the hashtags that we're coming up with. We always try to be positive instead of negative. We try to amplify the voices of those people trying to do the right thing instead of shaming the ones that are not, although sometimes you really have to shame people. But in this opportunity, we would love to invite all of you, bring your coffee mug to your coffee shop and try it. And if they say no, it is not because it's not allowed. We are really lucky in San Mateo County. We have a health department that is very well educated. They studied all the science and they came up with this statement saying, you know what, reusables are safe. So we're going to allow every single restaurant and cafe to accept your reusable mug. So you can do it, you can bring it, it's completely legal. So try it. If they say no, it's because they really don't want to do it. So that makes you think, do I really want to support this business that after seeing all of the scientific data are making the decision of not taking my reusable container or mug? So maybe you should try to find a cafe that is gonna take your mug. For reusable containers for takeout, the answer is yes. That's also legal in California and in San Mateo County. You can bring your beautiful container. Please make sure that it's clean, just to be respectful to people handling the container, right? Make sure that it's really clean. They're gonna take it to the kitchen, use a spoon specifically for that container, and they're gonna bring your beautiful Thai food or your Mexican food or any food you want in your container. Yes, that is legal in San Mateo and in California. So please do it. And when you go to a restaurant and they give you reusables, use the hashtag, because we want the entire Bay Area to be celebrating these restaurants and cafes.
Our plan is to create a map. We just had a meeting on this with a bunch of activists in the Bay Area. We want to create a map that everyone can use to influence them in making decisions for, frequenting restaurants and cafes that are allowing for reusables. So that'll be coming soon.
Can't wait for that map, because definitely need it to encourage better behavior and more behavior to bring your own and not be scared by it. I know it's been a hard time and it can be scary, but I was like, no, I think it's a great idea. It starts with us, and this is one of those things. And speaking of which, this next question, they live in Raleigh, North Carolina, but they want to know what the most impactful and also realistic plastic reduction campaigns that local organizations should encourage in their local communities, because she wants to see, what's been most successful. Having been part of the county's plastic bag ban and reusable bag ordinance, when I worked at the county, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but once the state, the county passed it, and then several years later, the state was able to do it. I feel like that is such a good thing, because it's not just the single-use takeout bag, it's also the produce bags. And I know we didn't ban those, but there's just so much plastic when you leave any store, not just even a grocery store. You think of like a big market, like, a Target or something like that. There's plastic bags everywhere. And I feel like if you start with something big, it can make a big impact. Plus, I feel like everyone's been bringing their own bag for so long. I know I have since like college, and they're fun and they're exciting. And I think, it's so easy to just shove a little bag in your purse and just walk into a store and be like, I brought my own bag. I don't need a bag for that. So I want to make my pitch for plastic bag bans. But I don't know if Alejandra or Eva, I know you guys have both worked on these. Any other campaigns or policies you think could work?
I have a lot of comprehensive policies, but also some pretty basic ones. As restaurants are starting to reopen, there was a huge amount of restaurant closures in the past year and few months. As they reopen, there's an opportunity to ask legislators to pass a policy that mandates reuse for on-site at new restaurants. So if a restaurant's opening a new restaurant with new ownership or new management, have it be mandated that they use reusables for on-site dining. It's shocking how many restaurants actually use disposable items for dine-in when you're sitting and eating at a restaurant. And some whole restaurant concepts are built on this, using disposables exclusively or in part disposables. And it's one that we're getting very little pushback from with local cities and towns and legislators, because it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to serve food on disposables if you're dining in. And there's a great opportunity there. It's similar to what was passed in Berkeley, and working on it in San Francisco and other cities. We do have on the Upstream website, we have links to model language for many different types of foodware ordinances. Some of them much more comprehensive, but I would say push for PFAS ban no matter what, because PFAS chemicals should not be on your foodware, whether it be plastic or non-plastic. And then if you can push through reuse for on-site dining for new restaurants, that's a huge win, and it can happen pretty quickly because of the reopening of an after COVID world.
Thank you, Eva. That was great. There's lots of things to try, so I definitely would look up. I feel like California, we've done a lot, so I feel like we're a great example for other places. And Eva just mentioned one, and I talked about bags, so I think there's some great stuff out there. Someone's asking, it seems like the printed guidelines on our bins from your companies are quite misleading. Why can't we be honest with one another? I want to say this is a question about, in the video, I know they were talking about, the chasing arrows and some other stuff, and that is entirely misleading. And this is kind of leads into a question I had was, and I know Eva Upstream is supporting this, but I know there's a bill right now in the California legislature, I think it's AB 343, to kind of to tackle this issue about the chasing arrows. But I want to give you a chance. I also want to give Dan a chance to answer this question as well about, chasing arrows and why it's misleading. But I don't know if you have any insight on that, Eva, or just about labeling in general.
I thought about this long and hard because it's something that's just bothered me for a long time. And I remember about a year ago when Greenpeace sent out their don't tell anyone yet, but we're starting this new campaign, and it was all about the arrows and talked a lot about the history and the lie that the plastics industry had created to create a market for these plastics. And I think it really circles back to a lot of what Alejandra was mentioning and what the rest of us expect about clarity with food. If we want it to be marked as non-GMO, we want it to be marked as organic, we want to know if it has allergens in it. And I think the same kind of clarity should be expected from consumers about packaging. We want to know if it's truly recyclable, because that will impact our purchasing. So I'm just really excited that this is changing. The film was really, I thought, told the story really well about how these symbols were created, and none of it was to help consumers make the right decisions or to help waste management companies. Can you imagine what it was like when those plastic containers started to come in and you were expected to recycle them? So any clarity and taking the responsibility off of the consumer. Like, this is a much bigger issue than a consumer buying a package. This is a huge industry that's like a puppeteer, having it impacting our purchasing choices. So Upstreams vary. I mean, I think any clarity about packaging upstream's going to be in full support of it, whether it be compostables or plastics, and really excited to see change in this space. So we'll keep pushing. It's also so confusing that it really leads us to the reusables and how that's a much clearer choice, as if you have to choose between 8 different kinds of plastic and you don't know whether they can be recycled or composted or how they affect human health. The reusable jar or the reusable containers going to be the clearer choice. So that's another thing that brought upstream to realize that reusable was going to be the clear choice moving forward. And I really look forward to Dan's insight on this as well.
Okay, a little history lesson. In the 1970s, a guy named Anderson won a contest by Container Corporation of America, and he's the one that came up with the triangle. It was actually a Mobius, so it turned at the edges, and he tried to get it patented, and so did CCA, and they failed to do that. But the internationally recognized symbol of recycling, that's how it got its origin. The plastics industry went through the ASTM and they got a legal protection for a triangle with a number inside of it they claimed had nothing to do with recyclability. It was specifically for the RIC, the Resin Identification Code. After they got that, they started the misleading farce where all of us think, oh, this is recyclable, because they turned that solid equilateral triangle into the chasing arrows, and that's what we live with today. So we can only hope, because the Federal Trade Commission won't do their job to hold companies accountable for false and misleading advertising. It's going to take the courts to do that. That's why there's 2 cases right now we should keep our eye on in California. One is Smith versus Keurig, which has to do with the pods. And the second one is Greenpeace versus Walmart. And both of them have to do with stopping the misleading representation of recyclability when it's not true.
That's great. I did not know about those cases, but yeah, I don't know how many times I've been asked by friends, like, it's recyclable, it has a chasing arrow, and it's like a plastic bag, and I'm like, no, please don't put that in your recycling. So I don't even know when they started putting the chasing arrows on plastic bags. I feel like that's entirely misleading, and probably why they're ending up in the MRF. So great question. Someone asked a question about where to purchase bulk food in the Bay Area. I know we're not all based in the Bay Area, but I know Alejandra is.
Yeah, I already sent the link.
Oh, okay.
For her.
In the chat? Okay.
Yes, but what I have to say is, when you go to Whole Foods or whatever we go, because Safeway has some bulk also, just go to the manager and tell them why isn't the bulk area open already. If we have enough science to know that it's safe to use containers to buy bulk. And it is, again, legal in California to bring your own container to buy bulk. So please get out there and shop in those places that are letting you do the right thing. Again, with all of the misleading information and the arrows and all of this, if it is single-use plastic, if it's packaging your food, just say no to that. That's the easiest way. Don't think about, is this recyclable? Is this not recyclable? Just say, okay, if it's plastic, at some point of the manufacturing, transportation, and waste is hurting someone. So just start shopping bulk, start shopping in farmers market, and start thinking about how to reuse your use of plastic in general, instead of thinking, is this recyclable or not?
Yeah, I think we just want to think everything is recyclable, but as we learned, in the video, and I think through, I know my readings and just the past couple of years, it's just, there has to be market. Dan was talking about it. It's like, we can't market these materials down, at the end of, post-consumer. It's just waste. So we got to think about, what we're purchasing and what things are made out of. I think that's something that I think it's going to be really hard to change that behavior, but it starts with each of us, everyone here tonight. I hope we take this information back to our friends and family and just spread that message. I think that's really important. Alejandra, thank you. The next question is the Biden administration and our new and improved Environmental Protection Agency working on resolving our plastics problem? What are they doing? I know in Congress there's something, I think they reintroduced something, I actually don't know. I'm hoping Eva can help me here. If there's anything on the national level or anybody, if they know anything, feel free to chime in of what our administration is doing.
I sent a a link about the Break Free from Plastic bill, which is something we should all get behind and support. And recently, a reuse component was added to that as well. Also, climate is a big, it's big on Biden's plate right now. And obviously the extraction of fossil fuels and the creation of plastic is a huge climate impact, as well as many more aspects of the whole oil business. And so I think that the connection between plastics and that climate will become an obvious next step as well. I would love to hear input from others, though. There is a link that I think you'll be shown at the end of this webinar to the Break Free from Plastic bill, which is extremely comprehensive and has a lot of support behind it. So that could be something that's pretty much a game changer. And I know that Recology is also working on a bill which would actually do a charge back to the makers of plastic packaging. It's like a penny on a container, and that money would be used, Dan, maybe you might know more about this too, to fund programs that are working on reducing plastic pollution. So there's a couple of things in the works in the next year or two.
I think what you're talking about, Eva, is the ballot initiative that was funded by Recology.
Right.
That is supposed to be on the 2022, I think, California ballot, but I don't think anything to add.
I talked to their policy directors soon, and they are still looking to move forward with it and just continuing to build support. So,
great. Dan, any insight from you, or are you just thinking?
Oh, I think Recology is doing the right thing. I mean, they approached the American Chemistry Council and said, let's do something about this problem. And if you don't, then we're going to push forward in some other way. And like typical, the petrochemical industry said, not my problem. And so that's how it got to where it is.
Yes,
Sorry, Dan, you were breaking up. So got the most of that. Alejandra?
He was saying that Recology is doing the right thing, and I agree with that, because they have to stop with the excuses. I encourage everyone to keep studying plastics. If you care about something in this planet, in the world, it is affecting you. If you have kids, it's affecting your kids' health. If you care about whales and turtles and fish and all that, it's killing them. If you care about human health, it is making us sick. If you care about climate change, is making the planet a total mess. So it doesn't matter what you care about, plastic is a problem in every single step of the way. I see very often posters and things that say, oh, this kind of plastic takes 500 years to decompose. And I'm like, they never decompose. That's a big lie. They just break down in smaller pieces. And in the meantime, they're releasing gases to the atmosphere that are just contributing to more and more and more climate change. So in every step of the use of plastic, there's a problem. And if you care about anything, you should care about plastics.
We're running, sorry, I know we're running a little low on time, but there was one last question about Amazon that brags this plastic bag is 50% lighter than a cardboard box. Maybe it's lighter, but it's definitely not recyclable, is my response to that.
I have a strong response there. I think
okay.
The narrative, it's not, is this one single-use disposable better than this other one single-use disposable? It's, hey, Amazon, when are you going to start using reusable packaging? And that's where the narrative's going now. This is the new campaign with Amazon, is get a reusable bag with a resealable closure and put that out into the market. It would save them a ton of money. They could use them over and over again, even if they had some loss, if people kept them because they were, you know, so cool. But there's a big push from in California, in the Bay Area and beyond, to ask Amazon to start piloting reusable packaging solutions. I don't think that home delivery is going anywhere anytime soon, and we cannot sustain the amount of packaging that Amazon's using, whether it be paper or plastic. It has to switch to reusable. And that is what we really should be pushing with our voices. If you use Amazon, it's time to ask them to change their entire policy around single-use packaging. Anything that comes in that box, whether it be bubble wrap or the outer envelope needs to be a reusable option that gets picked up with your next order.
I agree. You guys been talking about it all evening, getting to reusables. Yeah, I don't think, the whole everyone online ordering definitely not going away anytime soon. So I know we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask one final question, kind of to end on a positive, like high note. We've been talking about a lot of heavy and deep issues, but what, so this question is for all of you. What do you see as hopeful? I think we touched on it a little bit, but what do you see as hopeful in the fight against plastic? I say fight because I feel like it's an uphill battle that we're fighting, but we have some great things going on, and I think we've all touched on that. I'm gonna start with Alejandra because I feel like you've been saying some great stuff this evening.
Well, I am in general a very positive person, so it's easy for me to stay positive. I feel like the reason why we feel like it's overwhelming is because there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but just the fact that you're here learning about it and educating yourself makes it a positive experience because you're learning and you care and you're gonna bring this knowledge to your family and your friends and you're gonna make a difference with this knowledge. So all of this mess is positive at the end. I also encourage you to get involved, use your voice, even if you have Instagram and you write something saying, change to better packaging. That's already something you're saying because you're gonna have to worry about that comment. They can delete your comment. They have to figure out how to respond to your comment. So just use your voice, again, what we've been saying again, and reusables is definitely the positive aspect of all of this. We know that anything that it includes single use is not the real solution. And we are already seeing in California, there's policy being written around the use of reusables. So California leads the way all the time. Let's hope we get it right and we share these positive changes with the rest of the country and then with the rest of the world.
Great, well said. Dan, what is your hopeful, what do you see as hopeful in the fight against plastics?
Consumer awareness and the fact that we live in a capitalistic society. And I think that it's going to be harder for the big companies and the retailers to brainwash us into making stupid decisions to buy stuff without thinking about the unintended consequences. And so there's an awareness right now from the environmental side between the linkage on global warming and consumer behavior. The bottom line is we're in charge. We are the ones that make decisions on what we choose to buy. And that's a good thing.
Yes, back to our choices matter, our voice matters. Eva, what about you? What do you see as hopeful?
I'm extremely hopeful. I'm seeing this huge stage of opportunity and growth in green jobs, people moving away from going through other people's garbage into jobs that bring them joy and build a whole green infrastructure in this entire country and beyond. There's so much entrepreneurship in this space. People are starting businesses and finding solutions that don't involve single-use products in food delivery, in containers, in systems and strategies. There's whole parts of education being developed on how to create this new world, and the opportunity is never bigger than it has been now. So as a parent, I have a lot of hope. As a person in a business related to zero waste, I see it growing every day. More people are interested in getting involved and learning more and participating. So I'm definitely hopeful and excited for what this new stage is going to bring us as people become more and more aware of alternatives to what the status quo has been so far.
What a great way to wrap that up. Thank you, Eva. I feel very hopeful now from all three of Alejandra, Dan, and Eva. Thank you so much. Right at almost 8 o'clock. So I definitely want to thank everyone again for joining us. And thank you especially to our panelists for talking all things plastics this evening. Such a great discussion. I know I've learned a lot and I hope everyone, all our participants have as well. We would love to hear back from our participants on what they thought of tonight's event. The link I think is being put in the chat. And if you live in our service area, which is Burlingame to East Palo Alto, you can be entered into a raffle for an eco-friendly reusable item. And there will be a follow-up. I know someone asked about all this information. So there will be a follow-up in about a week's time for answers to all the questions this evening and links and all the information that we discussed tonight as well. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to learn more about recycling and composting, come join us this weekend for a virtual tour, or next Thursday, which is Earth Day. But we say Earth Days every day. For a sorting review and trivia, the link will also be put in the chat before we end. And finally, I just want to thank everyone again for their interest in this really, really important topic. And I know the topic of plastics can be completely overwhelming, but I think what we learned tonight is there's many opportunities for us to tackle this issue, whether personally or in a bigger group. So if we take it step by step, we can definitely make a really great impact together. And I'm very hopeful that we can make this happen. So hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, and please continue to stay safe and healthy. And we hope to see you around. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.